What if you woke up in the middle of the night knowing something was in your room, but you couldn't see it? This is the story of a man who discovered he wasn't alone in the dark, and what you found will haunt you forever. There's something in here with me. I don't know exactly what it is, but I am certain I am not alone. I don't know how it got in. I locked all my doors and my windows are shut. I always check that before going to bed. So logically I should be the only one here. But I'm certain I'm not Asterisk, and it's not my dog. He's right beside me asleep, like I was just a few minutes ago. But something woke me up. It wasn't a sound, but a feeling. Am I still asleep? Is this sleep paralysis? No, I can move. I sat up in my bed. I am wide awake and alert. But I don't know what has alerted me, Asterisk. All I know is that it's not nothing. There is something in here, something. But I can't see it. The light switch is right there. I could flip it easily. But I'm frozen. My entire attention is consumed by what is in front of me. But all I see in front of me is darkness, emptiness, a void. I'm not usually scared of the dark. Well, not more than anyone else is, I'd say. So, is it the dark that I am afraid of now? No, there's something in the dark. Waiting, Asterisk? Do I see eyes? Eyes staring back at me? Do I see teeth patiently waiting for me to close my eyes again to strike when I'm most vulnerable? Do I hear the breath of something sinister? Does it smell wrong in here? I am scanning all my senses for any kind of evidence to justify this feeling. And I'm coming back with nothing. So I should feel safe. But I don't Asterisk, I want to call out to it. But what then? I have no weapon on me. I know I should have kept a knife or a gun or a bat or a flashlight or anything. For nights like this. And maybe there have been nights like this where nothing has happened and there was nothing in the dark except my own creations. But this time feels different. I don't think there's something there. I know there's something there, Asterisk. I'm trying to explain it to myself, but I keep coming up short. I know I'm not making sense. Half of me thinks I'm wrong, but the other half knows I'm right. And knowing is stronger than thinking. But what is it? It's nothing. It's got to be nothing. The doors are locked, the windows are sealed. My dog hasn't been alerted, and I'm just imagining things, Asterisk. Except my dog just woke up. He turned his head to where I've been looking for the past hour, and he's locked to it. His ears are up, and they are pointed away from me. He is still. I knew I wasn't crazy. He sees something. Something that I can't see. But he's not moving too. I wish he'd just bark or chase it so that whatever is in this room with us would scurry out and this would be over and I could go back to sleep. But now I know that something is out there. I already knew it too. And he knows it now too. And whatever it is, it's something that has him frozen too. Is he scared like me? What could scare him like this? What could scare me like this? Asterisk, what do I do? If I reach for my phone, it could get to me before I even dial the first number. If I reach for the light, it could tear me to shreds with its teeth. If I make a move, it will certainly get to me and I would be gone. But I have to do something. I have to do something, Asterisk. I steal my resolve. I'm going to do it. I'm going to turn on the lights. I can't take not knowing anymore. I can't take waiting. Nothing is worse than waiting. Anything is better than not moving. Going for the light is better than not breathing. The sounds I make leaning over to the switch are better than the sickening silence. The creak of the mattress is like an explosion, but it is better than the empty space between me and whatever my fate shall be. Waiting didn't help me, thinking about it only made it worse, so what else is there besides action? Asterisk, I start the chain reaction. My fingers are the first to come to life. I move my arm. I breathe in. My back stretches at an awkward angle towards the light switch. Sweat beads on my forehead. My dog's ears twitch to the sound of my body gliding against the sheets. I can hear my own heart. My fingertips touch cold plastic. My entire body hesitates. I pull the switch, Asterisk. I knew it. I absolutely knew it. There's something in here with me. What if the sea itself was a Levian hungry? This is the story of a lighthouse keeper who discovered that the real monster wasn't in the water, but was the water itself. I used to be a lighthouse keeper back when I was younger. The job was harsh and solitary as you'd expect. I never stayed more than 2 weeks before someone else took over. Any longer, and you'd lose your mind, Asterisk. Most of my days were entirely uneventful. Reading, watching the ocean, making sure everything worked as it should. Nothing out of the ordinary. However, what happened during my last mission was different. I spent years trying to make sense of it. Now I think I understand Asterisk. I was sent to an old lighthouse off the coast. It was built on a grim rock surrounded by the sea. Its ominous gray tower seemed to defy the waves. I had to stay there for 5 days. It was quite a long time to spend alone. Your mind starts to wander and you become more imaginative. Or so I thought. Asterisk, the first 2 days went by unnoticed. The skies were clear and I was bored out of my mind. I had brought a book to keep myself busy. Otherwise, all I had to do was light the lamp at dusk and check that nothing was wrong with it during the night. That was it. Not much else to do, Asterisk on. The third day, however, the weather got worse. A storm was on its way. Do you know what we call the lighthouses off the coast? Hells. We call them hells. Because when the storm hits you, all you can do is pray. Pray that the stones are stronger than the waves crashing onto the tower. Pray that the winds don't blow the roof over your head, Asterisk. The screams of the sea are so loud that if you try to speak, you can't even hear your own voice. But this time the screams were different. It started as usual strong winds, high waves, pouring rain. As the wind rose, however, something changed. The gusts sounded less and less natural, Asterisk. I tried to ignore it at first, but it was unmistakable. It sounded like countless dead voices fused into a gruesome choir. As the night grew darker, as the storm swelled, the wind began to speak. I thought I was hallucinating at first. I thought my loneliness was playing on my nerves, Asterisk, but I heard it clearly. In the howling of the storm, it was in fact the only thing I could hear. It was singing my name. Over and over in 1,000 different voices. It was calling for me. I swallowed far too many sleeping pills before I finally passed out, Asterisk. I woke up. The next day, disappointed in myself. Me, a man of the sea, born and raised, facing the ocean, had let delusional thoughts and false impressions take over me. I wouldn't let that happen again. The day was quiet, unlike the previous night. The storm had passed, and timid waves licked the lighthouse's foundations. I finished my book, Asterisk. At the end of the day, I went up to the lantern room to turn the lamp on and watched the sunset. The sight was beautiful. It looked like the ocean was devouring the sun, swallowing its light whole. But as the last rays of sunlight faded, I noticed something strange. Again, Asterisk. A wave, far away. A wave that wasn't like the others. It was perfectly straight, topped with a thick foam. Among the other waves, it felt unnatural. And it was moving towards me unlike all the others. Determined not to let my thoughts get the better of me, I stayed there to watch Asterisk. Minutes went by, as the wave was approaching me at a steady pace. It finally crashed into the rocks underneath. I let out a sigh of relief, but my breath stopped in. A gasp of horror. As the waters receded, they left something ashore. A writhing, formless white shape, entirely made of foam, Asterisk. The shape started moving. Slowly, it crawled over the rocks, searching for a way inside. It looked vaguely human. I was not going to run away. It wasn't bravery on my end. I had nowhere else to go, anyway. So, I stayed at the top of the tower watching the shape from above, Asterisk. The shape stopped at the door. It rose on its hind legs. It looked like a woman, but its features were indistinct. It had no face of its own. It was nothing but foam. It looked at me. It had no eyes, but I felt it watching me. Something ancient, unnatural, was casting its gaze on my miserable being, Asterisk. Then a slit appeared where its mouth was supposed to be. The creature was smiling at me. This smile conveyed no warmth, but no malice either. It was an indifferent, contemptuous smile. The monster seemed slightly amused. It raised its arm and pointed its long, impossible finger towards me, Asterisk, and then it screamed. A scream so loud it made the previous day's storm sound like silence. A high, piercing shriek that drilled into my skull. I covered my ears and fell over as the pain became more and more intense, turning my back to the creature. And then it stopped all of a sudden. Asterisk. Minutes passed. I was still paralyzed in fear. The pain subsided and I gathered all my courage to stand up and take a look at the shape, but it had disappeared. All that was left was a trace of foam where I had last seen it. Right in front of the door, Asterisk, I thought of calling for help and leaving. I hesitated, but I convinced myself not to. I was a rational man. I know that being alone can play tricks on your mind. Maybe I had dreamed of the shape, maybe I had mistaken it for something else. Anyway, I only had one day left asterisk, then the boat would come, and I would soon leave hell. It was a mistake. The last night was the worst of them all. It looked like the sea itself wanted to turn me mad. It all began at dusk. At first the wind, started as a gentle breeze, soon became another storm asterisk, and this time the storm started to laugh. It was laughing at me, mocking my ludicrous tower in the middle of the ocean. And then the waves. Rather than passing by, they started to converge towards the lighthouse, as if they wished to topple me down asterisk. As they came closer, my eyes widened. Could see white shapes atop the waves. They looked just like the monster I saw the day before, twisted and cursed. There were hundreds of them. The final straw was the lights. Faint, dim lights that appeared on the horizon asterisk. I mistook them for ships at first, when the first 3 or 4 appeared. But they grew more numerous. Hundreds, then thousands of impossible lights, all pulsing and dancing in unison far in the distance. I was surrounded. The winds, the waves, the lights, all were wishing for my end. I could feel it asterisk. In an act of courage, I hurried up the stairs and turned on the lamp. I thought it would drown out the lights, I thought it would burn the foam, but to my dismay, it had the opposite effect. All hell broke loose. The shapes followed the beam at an impossible speed asterisk. The lights grew blindingly bright and surged towards. The wind grew stronger, shaking the foundations of the lighthouse. I had to make it stop. I did something reckless. I turned the lamp back off. And then suddenly it all stopped asterisk. The lights disappeared, the wind settled. The shapes went back into the ocean, where they came from. A thick mist took their place. And then I stayed there alone as I cried myself to sleep. I was woken up hours later, in the middle of the night by a crashing sound, asterisk metal, tearing apart, filling the air with mechanical horror. I stood up and looked around, but the moonlight was too faint and the fog was too thick for me to see anything. It lasted for 1 minute, then it stopped. And then I heard them screams. Human screams, muffled by the mist asterisk. My eyes widened as I came to the realization a ship had crashed against the reefs surrounding the tower. The unlucky sailors couldn't have seen them. I had turned off the lights that should have guided them. The screams lasted for a while, then one by one they fell silent. Asterisk. As the waters claimed their souls, a moment of silence followed. The fog thickened around the tower, heavy and unmoving. Then the wind rose again. A thin, cold gust slipped through the cracks of the lantern room. It carried with it a sound faint at first asterisk, indistinguishable from the howling air, a woman's laughter, distant and drawn out, as if the sea itself had learned to mock me. It faded slowly, leaving only the pounding of my heart, and then silence reclaimed its throne. I lost the job, of course, asterisk. I told them it was mechanical failure from the lighthouse. But that was no excuse. My job was precisely to avoid this. I spent the next few years thinking about what had happened. I was afraid to realize it, but there was only one explanation asterisk. It had wanted me to turn off the lamp. It had wanted them to die. To those who read these words, consider my warning. Do not fear the monsters in the sea. Fear the sea itself, for it is the monster, and it feeds on the drowned. That night in October doesn't feel like a memory. It feels like a possession. It haunts my dreams and my waking hours alike. This secret is a living thing, gnawing at me from the inside. I can't keep it to myself anymore. I have to be the one who knows what happened. Well, not the only one Gil knows. Of course. Last year, I traded the noise of Boston for a rented duplex outside a speck of a town called Little Compton. Our island, it was idyllic, quaint walking distance from the ocean as a Tennessee girl. I never expected a New England seaside town to feel like coming home, but it did how I wish it had stayed that way. I met Gilbert at a local pub. Neptune was sitting alone. Tall, awkward, and strangely beautiful all at once. There was something unmistakably odd about him, asterisk, when he looked up, and caught me staring. His eyes were like an aquamarine arrow shot right through my soul. What happened next was completely out of character. Some unknown force lifted me off my chair and carried me to him. We talked, we laughed, we drank. He was gentle, soft-spoken, slightly funny, but beneath his swimmer's build. There was something fragile like the bone of a bird when the bar closed. The fog had rolled in an asterisk. My head was spinning. I hadn't thought about how I'd get home. It's close. Yes, that wasn't true. But I said it was. That's when I blurted it out, a thought that never faced the scrutiny of my own good sense. What if I went home with you? Gil looked surprised. He peered up the road into a black cloak of trees beyond the streetlights. I saw the edge of his face crease with discomfort. Worry, I immediately started backpedaling, stammering, my face flushing red, but then he turned to me with a warm smile that stopped my words. All right. He said asterisk, I could smell the sea. After 15 minutes, we turned onto a narrow, rutted drive that wound deeper into the trees, and then the house stood there, a pale, aging two-story colonial. Luminous and ghostly in the moonlight inside was a museum of the sea. The air was hot, humid, and thick with the smell of salt shells. Sea glass, a mummified pufferfish nautical. Instruments and fishing nets adorned the walls. It was like standing right on the shore. I noticed a picture of a bearded fisherman on a lobster boat, familiar piercing eyes. That's my father, Gil said, moving close to. Me, he loved the ocean more than anything, so much that it eventually kept him in a storm. When I was 14, a silence fell over us. The room felt sweltering. I was dizzy from the booze and the heat. Is it hot in here? Yeah. Sorry, the thermostat's broken something. Thumped quietly under the floorboards, I leaned over to look. But the sound didn't come again. Gil returned with a glass of ice water. The coolness flooded my veins and restored me. Then he reached over and took my hand. His smile was disarming. Kind of nagging fear vanished. What followed was fireworks, wailing. Hammering finish that left us panting and spent on his antique sofa afterwards. I noticed them, several thin, faint red lines on either side of his throat, and his torment-shaped one shaped. What's this? I asked. He put a self-conscious hand to his neck. Nothing, a birthmark, hereditary thing later. In the sweltering dark of his bedroom, we were back at it, twisting in the sweat-drenched sheets. Afterwards, Gil took a sleeping pill, and we slept. I awoke with a start pitch barched. The air was oppressive. Hot. Gil was snoring softly beside me, nudged him hard. He didn't wake. I felt my way through the unbearable heat to the kitchen. I gulped down water, and, on impulse, unlatched the window. A merciful rush of frigid night air washed over my bare skin thumb high. Turned with a start to a door at the opposite end of the kitchen, a pantry. Maybe my heartbeat shifted up a gear. Silence. I found the living room thermostat. The dial was turned all the way up to 90 degrees. Lowered it to 70. I turned out the lights and felt my way back to bed. I awoke soon after to a new sound. A wet, flopping, humping noise, then the patter of water. The house was now cold. Gil, wake up. I shook him harder. It was no use. He was dead to the world. The sound came again, a sheet of wet leather slapping against the floor. Terrified, I inched my way back into the house. I turned on the living room light. Everything seemed normal, but as I approached the kitchen, a faint gurgling sound stopped me. Reached for the light switch. The kitchen bloomed to life, and I was standing in a large puddle. I looked down. Fish, heads strewn about the wet floor. My eyes traced a haphazard trail of them to the far door. It was now standing open, a square of deep, impenetrable black. The air wafting from it was cold, stale, reeking of salt water. I crouched, peering down the rough-hewn stairwell. The basement was flooded, totally filled with black. Shimmering, water-old furniture protruded like rotten islands. Something splashed. I snapped upright and backed away. And then I heard it right behind me, gurgling sound. Crackling with dampness, I whirled around, and my eyes fell on a nightmare coiled against the door, like a huge serpent, dark, scaly, fish-like skin. Shimmering, it shifted, peering at me with lidless black eyes. Its upper half was humanoid, lanky, webbed, arms leathery, hanging breasts beneath a stringy cascade of wet hair. A face with flat nostrils suddenly split open, and a fat-lipped maw, a fish head, fell out and plopped onto the tile. I began to scream. The thing writhed, crimson gills flared on its neck. It shot forward across the floor at me, webbed hands slapping. A long fishtail swiping behind it surged backwards, Crashing into a cabinet, it fell in an explosion of china. The thing scrabbled towards me and grabbed my ankle with a clammy suction grip. Then Gil's voice, hoarse from the bedroom. Menahe braced naked in the doorway. Hollering, he tore me from the creature's grip with incredible strength and hauled me stumbling away. The thing he called Mother gasped and flapped after us. We piled into the bedroom. He tried to slam the door, but the creature wedged itself inward. Snapped an O, Mother nitrogen monoxide. Leave her be. She didn't stop. She clawed across the floor towards me. Gil grabbed at her, but she fought him off, blinded by tears and darkness. I threw myself at the window. I couldn't undo the latch. The sound of flapping fins closed in my hands. Found a chair. I swung it. The window shattered, but the wooden crossbars held was ripped off my feet by fish-cold hands. I fought on my back as the thing squirmed over me, shockingly heavy, slippery, like cold sex. Its mouth yawned wide in my face, unfolding like a barracuda's. Glinting with needle teeth, then Gil slammed into her. Throwing her off me, they rolled, thudding against the bed. The thing hissed like a viper, its tail lashing, breaking things in the dark. I was up in a split second, sprinting. I didn't feel the broken china slicing my feet. I skidded on the wet kitchen floor, fumbled open the deadbolt, and flung the door wide to the night. I could hear Gil wailing in despair behind me, charged out into the darkness. Crazed and directionless, I threw a single glance back at the house, and I saw him still peering out the window. At me, his face drawn with an anguish I could feel in my chest, pure heartbreak. And then iran branches slashed my bare skin. My bleeding feet pounded on leaves, gravel, and finally pavement. I didn't stop for a mile. I called the police at sunrise. Chief seemed stupefied, then angry. Gil is a good man. He asked if I'd been drinking, if I had psychiatric conditions, if I understood the seriousness of lying. I hung up and cried on my kitchen floor. The next evening, a friend brought me a paper bag, my clothes, my purse, my phone Gil had dropped. Then at the school, when I opened it, I was hit by that briny scent. I dropped the bag. You've since moved back to Tennessee, but that night is fresh. As if it happened hours ago. I know what I saw. I know it was real. And yet, I routinely question my own sanity. Maybe that's what losing your mind is. Knowing something is real when everyone else knows it is no. I'm haunted by every detail, but the image that lives most clearly in my mind, the one I can actually see, is Gil's face in that window. The devastation, the crushing sadness. His face will stay with me for a very long time. I don't know if telling this story will bring me peace, but at least now it's told. Whether you believe it or not is up to you. Everyone thinks they know what happened to Kat. The papers said she was just another missing commuter. The rumors said she ran away from her bad home life. They're all wrong. I know the truth because I was there the night she disappeared. I have the scars to prove it, and I know she's still out there, waiting in that diner. All started in baking class. I needed an easy elective, and my friend Mikey promised me, and a cat made it look effortless. Even covered in flour, her vintage dresses were always immaculate. She first noticed me when I almost set my pound cake on fire. I heard a giggle that sounded like an old record, and I turned to see her winking at me from across the kitchen asterisk after class. I worked up the nerve to talk to her. I asked if I had said something funny. Her skin was like porcelain in the sun. She laughed and said it was pretty funny watching me almost burn down the school. Her voice was like something from an old movie. I watched her glide away across the quad, completely captivated. Asterisk, we spent every moment together after that. She shared her love for baking from scratch, vinyl records, and Andy Warhol. I pretended to get some of it, but being with her felt like stepping into a better world. It felt like we were beyond time itself. Asterisk. Then came the night she called me. We usually texted, so I was startled when her special ringtone, an Everly Brothers song, played. Her voice was broken, a different girl entirely. She asked me to come get her, to take her anywhere else. I didn't hesitate. I finally asked for her address. Reed Street, she said, pleading with me to hurry. Asterisk. My GPS led me to a place that shocked me. Reed Street was a dirt road off the highway, not a street of nice homes. Her house was a rusty trailer in a field of weeds. She walked into the light at the bottom of broken concrete stairs, her appearance perfect as always. But her movement was different. On campus, she was light and free. Here, she walked like she was afraid of being seen asterisk. She got into my truck and I turned down the music. Her lipstick was fresh, but her mascara was smudged. A dark bruise was visible under her makeup. She told me to just drive. When I asked where, she just repeated herself, her lips tight to hold back tears. We both wanted her to be a statue, beautiful and too strong to break asterisk. We drove for an hour in heavy silence. It was past midnight and I was starving. I saw an exit, sign I had never noticed before. It simply read Lily's Diner in looping red letters. I shouted over the music asking if she was hungry. Kat hesitated, then laughed to herself and said she could eat asterisk. The sign said it was half a mile for the exit. 2 miles down the road, I was sure I had made a wrong turn. Then I saw it. It was an abandoned building, the kind you learn to ignore. The sign had fallen off years ago. I said we should just go to McDonald's. Kat refused, her campus spirit returning. She dragged me out of the truck toward the dark ruin asterisk. I told her there was nothing there, tripping over weeds. The windows were cracked and dusty. The county must have condemned it long ago. But Kat looked at it like it was a priceless painting. She pushed the door open and neon light blasted through the darkness asterisk. We were staring into a perfect diner. Checkerboard tile gleamed under bright lights. A chrome counter sparkled. Booths in bright red leather lined the walls. It was all too clean, the colors unnaturally vivid. A woman behind the counter spun around. She was young but dressed even more out of time than Kat. She wore a blue dress and a white apron. Her red hair matched her lips and nails. For a split second, I thought her teeth looked too sharp asterisk as I stood frozen. Kat chirped a thank you. She looked like she belonged. The woman smiled, neon light flickering in her eyes, and introduced herself as Lily. She pointed to a booth with a finger that looked like a sharp red dagger. The booth's leather was stiff. I hoped we would leave quickly asterisk. I picked up a menu, but Kat snatched it away. She said she knew exactly what we were getting. Lily called out to a man named Levi at the counter who I hadn't noticed before. He was athletic, wearing a tight white shirt and jeans. His voice was hungry when he ordered his usual. Kat smiled at him. Making me jealous asterisk, Lily walked over, her red heels clacking on the tile. She called us lovebirds, a fact I had never confessed. To Kat. Before I could speak, Kat excitedly ordered 2 strawberry milkshakes with cherries. Lily's voice was sickly sweet. She squeezed Kat's shoulder, her sharp nails digging in. I knew we had to leave, but Kat was completely enchanted asterisk. Our shakes arrived instantly. Levi brought them over. He ignored me, looking at Kat with pure hunger. He told her to shake it for him. Kat just giggled. As he walked away, he slammed into my shoulder. He smelled like smoke. I saw his dark red eyes and sharp teeth clearly. I was so angry I bit my own tongue asterisk. Kat told me not to worry, that he was just flirting and acting the part. She was choosing to ignore the danger. Halfway through her shake, her voice became serious again. She asked me if I ever wondered why she was the way she was. I told her she was perfect to me asterisk. She pointed to the bruise on her cheek. She said life at home was hard and sometimes it was easier to live in the past. She said it was better back. Then, she looked around the diner with a painful smile. I had no words to comfort her asterisk. The silence grew too long. She forced a laugh, popped her cherry in her mouth, and apologized for the serious talk. She pointed to a gleaming jukebox and asked me to play her a song. I agreed too eagerly, just happy to change the subject asterisk. I walked to the jukebox, passing Levi and resisting the urge to shove him. I found a quarter already in the slot and played her Everly Brothers song. The harmony started. I turned back and saw Levi was already at our booth, bent too close to Kat. He held out a sharp nailed hand. Kat gave me a sad smile and took an asterisk. I rushed over. I shouted at Levi that he was dancing with my date. He told me to calm down and said she was having fun. Kat was swaying with him. She didn't look like she was having fun. She looked blissful. happier than I had ever seen her. I told her we were leaving. She didn't even hear me. Levi laughed at me. A deep, pitying sound. Humiliated and furious, I stormed off to the bathroom. I splashed water on my face, trying to calm down. Then I heard it. The jukebox started the same song again by itself. I had only paid for one play. Every nerve in my body screamed that we were in danger. I left the bathroom. The hallway back seemed longer. The floral wallpaper, once bright, was now stained and peeling right before my eyes. I started to run. By the time I reached the dining area, I was sprinting. I was going to save her but she was gone. The diner was empty and rotting. Plates of old food were covered in flies. Cobwebs hung from torn stools. The overwhelming smell of raw meat came from the kitchen. I ran behind the counter. The floor was sticky with red stains. I threw open the kitchen door. The smell of fresh blood hit me hard. Levi stood over a table, his hands working on something dark. He turned. His eyes were blazing scarlet. His teeth were fangs. Blood soaked his white shirt and pale face. Kott's bright scarf was sticking out of his jeans pocket. The thing that was Levi charged me. I swung the door open and felt sharp claws sink into my arm. The thing that was Lily, still in her blue dress, was trying to drag me into the kitchen. Another cold arm hooked around my throat from behind. They pulled me down onto the bloody floor. With a final surge of strength, I twisted violently, throwing them into the doorframe. They roared an ancient, unnatural sound as I scrambled over the counter and ran. I didn't stop until I reached my truck. It was suddenly daytime. I looked back at the field. There's nothing there but grass. It has been 3 years. I know I should move on, but I can't. Tot is waiting for me in that timeless place. She seemed happy there. When I find that diner again, I will be happy to. I used to think the silence in my marriage was the sound of an ending, the quiet before the storm of a divorce. I was so sure my husband was whispering another woman's name in the dark. I had the evidence, the late night texts, the secret calls. I was ready to burn our life together to the ground. Was wrong, the real truth, the terrifying truth didn't come from another woman. It crawled out of our basement, and the price for the miracle it gave uses of debt written in the scent of patchouli. And the sound of scratching at the door. This is not a story about infidelity. This is a story about what my husband really bargained for in the dark. I used to think silence was empty. Turns out it's just the sound of secrets too heavy for words. Every creak in our old floors, every sigh of wind against the windows. I'd swear it was Ethan whispering another woman's name. The late night texts, those murmured calls from the porch, I stacked them up like evidence in a trial only I knew was coming. I wasn't guessing. I was certain. That certainty clanked against my ribs every time I walked into the room, and he would flip his phone face down like the glow of another message could end the world. I was ready to confront him, ready to torch the whole damn marriage. Spoiler, I was wrong. The truth, whatever this was, crawled out of the basement instead. 7 years in, Maple Street felt like forever. We'd bought the place for the wraparound. Porch, fixed the squeaky step together, planted lavender like we were setting down roots you could smell. Year 5 though, the music skipped. After the miscarriages, the rooms ballooned out, too much space where a crib should have gone. Too much quiet where laughter should have been. I felt like a failure. The doctor told us there was nothing wrong with either of us. These things happened, he said, but I just knew Ethan blamed me. After the third miscarriage, he started growing distant. Despite my failures, I wasn't suspicious. I thought our marriage was strong enough to see this through. And his little project in the basement would help him cope. I was told men grieve differently. I'd never seen him cry. Not even when Oscar was born at 19 weeks. He was absolutely beautiful. 10 fingers, 10 toes. A boy too perfect for this world. They call it born asleep, and that's just how he looked. We got to hold him. For a few hours I cried and cried and cried. Ethan didn't. He held me. But I could feel his disappointment, when he told me he needed some me time to sort his head. I didn't protest. I left him alone down there to build his man. Tave, I was surprised, though, when instead of hauling wooden nails down those creaking stairs, he carried bags of salt, oils, candles, a heavy old book I didn't recognize, asterisk. Listen, I'm not judging. If you wanted a secret man spa, fine. But looking back, I realized he wasn't trying to escape his grief. He was bargaining with it, asterisk. He would spend every Friday night locked in that room. Whatever he was doing seemed to be working for him, so I left it alone. After about 2 months, he started looking at me again, really looking. Like I wasn't just a reminder of everything we'd lost, asterisk, by the 3rd month when I told him the heavy scent of patchouli oil was making me throw up. He just smiled and quietly packed everything away. I found out I was pregnant with Jessie that same week. Strange thing was, when I told Ethan, it was like he already knew, asterisk, I'd been nervous. I knew this pregnancy would be filled with dread, but Ethan, he wasn't worried in the slightest. It's going to be okay this time, he said one evening, as I soaked his t-shirt with tears. You can't possibly know that. I do. I can feel it, Kara. We have someone watching over us this time. I thought he meant Oscar, our perfect angel. I didn't know it then, but that's not what he meant at all. He was right, nonetheless. The pregnancy was a breeze. Jessie was born bang on 40 weeks. She weighed 7 pounds 11 ounces with a shock of thick chestnut hair. Strange, considering I'm blonde and Ethan's brown. He joked about the milkman, and we laughed as we looked into our daughter's ocean blue eyes. Asterisk, we left the hospital a day later. Jessie fit into our home perfectly. Her cries and gurgles smothered the silence. I was the happiest woman on the planet. It could only have been 4 or 5. Weeks after we brought her home, we were curled on the sofa watching Jessie drift in and out of sleep. I don't know what I was thinking. Called hormones, called madness. But I said it. I want another one. No. Ethan's voice cracked like a whip. Jessie startled, tiny arms shooting out. I froze. He never raised his voice. He sat forward, rubbing his hands over his face. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it's not the right time, asterisk. I tried to laugh it off. Oh God, I didn't mean this second. Just someday. His eyes locked on mine, sharp as broken glass. No, one's enough. The way. He said it flat, final. Left no room for argument, Doc. We had always planned on having a large family. This house was meant to be full of children, not ghosts. After that night, he grew distant again. His occasional calls to say he was working late turned into at least 3 nights a week. He'd saunter through the door like nothing was wrong. My what the fucks were always met with. Sorry, I forgot to let you know. Even then, I still didn't suspect cheating. How could any decent man play around when he knew he had a loving wife and a baby at home? Now I wish he had been cheating, asterisk, when Jessie turned 6 months old. Nothing had improved. I was losing him. One rainy Friday, I packed Jessie's bag and took her to my mom's. By the time he got home, I had everything ready. I wore his favorite dress. I had his favorite kids' meal waiting on the table, asterisk. Where's Jessie? Were the first words out of his mouth. She's at my mom's, I said gently. I think we need to talk. Why is she at your mom's? Stop using her as a shield. The words snapped out before I could catch them, asterisk. He froze. A shield? What the hell does that mean? It means every time I try to talk to you, you hide behind Jessie. You dodge. You vanish. He flung his keys in the bowl, dropped his phone and wallet onto the table, and walked past me. His phone vibrated loudly. It was closer than it had ever been before. I saw the name of the sender, Alex, and the word impatient, asterisk. He snatched the phone up and slid it back into his pocket. Later, I'd learned what impatient really meant. Got my chest burned. Do you even care anymore, Ethan? About me? About us? He chewed slowly. How could you say that? I'm doing this for you. We argued, but then he brought up an old, funny memory about spilled beer. We laughed. The first real laugh we shared in months. Then the ceiling. Above us gave a slow, deliberate creak. Jessie was at Mum's. The sound didn't make sense. Ethan's jaw stiffened. Old house, he muttered, but his eyes lingered a beat too long on the ceiling. I'll check, he said, pushing himself to his feet. Then it came, a faint, cloying waft of patchouli. The basement door gave a heavy thud as it swung shut. I jumped. Ethan? I could hear my own heart beating in my ears. He came back, down, pale, but trying to look casual. Nothing there, he said, but his hand shook asterisk we drank, trying to ignore it. One can turn into three. We traded stories, half teasing, half serious. By the time the cans were gone, we were sitting close. His knee brushed mine. For one night, at least, the distance between us blurred. The next morning, I woke rested. Morning, I said softly. Ethan stirred, looking startled to see me. Did we, He muttered, glancing around for a condom packet. Ethan, I laughed. I'm your wife. Sorry, he said quickly. I just meant, you're not on anything, are you? I could get you pregnant. I forced a smile. Relax. I'm doing a few days anyway. The chances are basically zero. He nodded, but his jaw stayed tight. A tiny thread of distrust began to knot in my chest. Asterisk. The days slipped by. I blamed my late period on stress. But when 2 weeks passed, my stomach sank. I bought a test. 2 pink lines. Clear as day. I hid it in my drawer. I said nothing. Ethan was distracted, jittery. Sometimes I caught him watching me with something colder. Calculation, maybe. One afternoon, I made a beeline for the basement to get bleach. No. He shot up so fast his chair screeched. I'll get it. I froze. What's your problem? It's just bleach. I said I'll get it. He snapped, brushing past me. The smell of patchouli oil hit me like a brick wall. He came back up, put the bleach down. I turned to face him. What the hell is down there? You don't want me to see? Another woman? Drugs? His eyes flicked past me, toward the half-open door. A cold chill ran down my spine. He shut the door firmly and locked it, slipping the key into his pocket asterisk. That was the moment my confusion curdled into rage. I wasn't welcome in my own damn house. His phone buzzed on the table. Aren't? You only get that? He shook his head. It's nothing. Nothing had a name. Nothing had secrets. The next week was hell. The morning sickness ramped up. Every retch over the toilet. I thought of him sneaking around while I carried his child. And yet, I didn't leave. I was scared. That night I woke to the sound of Ethan screaming. The smell hit me before I reached the bottom. Patchouli. Thick and cloying. He was on the sofa, hunched over, sweat dripping. What the hell is going on? I snapped. Who have you had in here? His head shot up, eyes wide. She's here? Where? My blood ran cold. So, you admit it. What? No, I mean, Kara, no one's here. You're imagining things. But the patchouli clung to everything asterisk, don't fucking gaslight me. I stormed back upstairs. He followed, pleading. There's no one else, I swear. Then why the hell does it smell like her perfume? He reached for me. Don't fucking touch me. I flinched. His hand stilled on my arm. His face. Changed? Kara, what's this? I looked down. Dark smudges, finger-shaped, blooming across my skin. Before I could answer, his hands were on me, pushing up my sleeve, brushing over my skin. Ethan, stop. His palm slid lower across my stomach, and he froze. He'd felt the slight swell beneath my nightshirt. His face drained of color. You are pregnant, he whispered. It wasn't a question. Yeah, I whispered back. His body sagged. I tried so hard to stop this, he whispered, voice breaking. Stop what? I choked out. Another baby with me? Or another secret with her? There's no her, Kara. Not in the way you think. Anyway, asterisk, I pulled away. He had just admitted it. Proof I wasn't crazy. You've been lying to me this whole time, I hissed, clutching my stomach. I want you out. He looked at me with terror. No, he croaked. Yes, get out. You're not safe, he whispered. I thought you meant from him. I was wrong. I went to Jessie, scooping her up. That smell hit me again. Patchouli. What the fuck, Ethan? I snapped. rocking Jessie. Get her out of here. I yanked open the door. Ethan stood in the hallway. His face drained of color. He wasn't looking at me. He was staring straight ahead, past my shoulder, breathing fast. For a heartbeat. The air thickened, and I felt it too, the weight of something else standing with us, unseen. Then it was gone. Ethan stood frozen. What's happening? I whispered. Ethan's lips moved. She wants her debt paid. My stomach dropped. What debt? He didn't answer. His whole body shook. Asterisk. I sat on the bed, staring at the clock. Ethan rocked Jessie silently. We hadn't slept. Tap tap, tap tap. We both jumped. A crow was on the windowsill. Chill. It's Jerry. The crow I feed, I said. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Crows aren't white, as this one is. Why didn't you tell me? Ethan's voice cut the silence. I frowned. It's just a crow. Not the crow, Kara. About the baby. I was scared, Ethan. I whispered. I thought you hated me. Of course I don't, he said quickly. I love you, Kara. You just don't understand. Then make me understand. He rubbed his face. You were so sad, Kara. After Oscar. Don't. You dare blame this on me. Listen, please, he begged. I was hurting too. I found a forum for dads like me. We talked. Then one of them, Alex, messaged me. Said he could help. Said there were ways. Bet there's someone you can go to. Asterisk, he was trembling. She helps. She bargains. If you want a child, she will give you one. All she asks is that in time you give her something back. The room felt colder. Alex swore it worked. He had his son, Max. All he had to give in return was his voice. He was a singer. Now he can't speak above a whisper. That's why I was getting so many texts. Outside the door, the floor creaked. A long, dragging sound moved down the hall. I forced a laugh. So, what, Ethan? You think some whispering bogey woman hands out miracle babies? The sound outside the door stopped dead. The silence pressed in. I dropped my voice. What did she ask you for? Ethan's eyes were fixed on me, wide and glassy. The one thing I wanted was a large family. His voice was raw. She wanted my ability to have more kids. I put a hand to my stomach. Well, that's not true, is it? Look at me. He shook his head, eyes shining. No, you don't understand. You can still get pregnant. That's not what she took. His breath shuddered out. She wants to take them? All of them. Asterisk. The words hollowed me out. The sound outside the door came again, a dragging weight. I tried not to get you pregnant, Kara. I did this for us. Tried not to get me pregnant. The words tore out of me. You're not an animal. You could have had a vasectomy. His face crumpled. I didn't think of that. The room went ice cold. Something slammed against the door so hard the frame rattled. Then came the scratching. Slow, deliberate, like nails dragged down the wood grain. A sickly wave of patchouli seeped under the door. I pressed both hands to my stomach, shaking. That's her, isn't it? Ethan's knuckles were white against the door. Yes, he whispered. It's her. The scratching paused. She knows you know now, he said. She knows you're pregnant. That's why it started up again. And now she's impatient. My throat tightened. Impatient. That's what the text meant. I stood frantic. Alex must know how to stop this. The scratching started. Again, the smell thickened. Jessie's cry split the air, high and panicked. I scooped her up. Ethan fumbled for his phone, hands shaking. Alex, he hissed. She's here. Tell me what to do. Static, then a rasping whisper. I can't hear you. Jesse's cries escalated with the banging. His face drained of color. Agree, he said, nodding frantically at me. Just agree out loud. I clutched Jessie tighter. Agree to what? The scratching stopped. The silence was worse. Agree to give her the baby, he pleaded. No, I said, shaking my head. I'm not giving her anything. On the other side of the door, the scratching stopped. A heavy silence filled the room. Silence. Jessie no longer cried. She wasn't breathing. Her arms released and flopped lifelessly to her side. Ethan, I screamed. He spun toward me, the phone clattering to the floor. Jessie's head lolled, her skin cooling. Ethan dropped to his knees, pressing his hands to her tiny chest, begging between gasps. Come on, breathe for me, please. I could hear the phone, Alex's voice rattling out in a broken croak. Agree. My hand shook as I reached for it. I looked at Ethan, hunched and frantic. The room smelled of patchouli. Thick as smoke got my throat closed, but the word forced itself out, a broken whimper into the void. Okay, I agree. For a heartbeat, nothing. Then Jessie arched in Ethan's arms with a sharp, rattling gasp. A cry burst out of her that split the silence. I crawled to her, sobbing, holding them both. Ethan fell back, tears streaking his face, staring at her like she was both a miracle and a curse. The scratching was gone, but the smell of patchouli still lingered. I'm 20 weeks pregnant today. It's a boy. We sat at the ultrasound with faces like stone. Ethan won't look at the pictures. He just stares at my stomach like it's already a grave. I don't know why I'm writing this. Maybe I just need someone to tell me what to do. Maybe someone has heard of her before. The Hollow Lady. Because if Ethan is right, the baby growing inside me doesn't belong to me at all. It belongs to her.